On today's episode of Let's Grow Together, I talk with Jason Brown, and you'll hear my story and how this individual helped me when I needed it. And I know that this message, what he shares, can help many of you. There are so many valuable insights that he shares. He is a stock trader expert, and that's what his field is. But we don't even talk about that. We talk about so many other things that are critical to the success of being able to do what he did, which was build his a six-figure business when he was still working a full-time job, which is just truly incredible and inspiring. If that's something you can relate with, if you're trying to build your business, or even if you already have a successful one, I promise you that the things that Jason talks about in this episode will help you get to the next level, because when we're working on ourselves, that's how we can grow. So let's just dive into the episode. But first, the intro. Welcome to Let's Grow Together. My name is Nick Monotadibus, motivational speaker and digital marketing strategist. And this podcast is all about helping you grow both in life and business. Let's dive in. Hello, we are back, and I am super excited for this guest. This individual had a huge impact on me a few years ago, and I'm really excited to kind of share that with him, because I'm not sure if he's aware of that or not, but I'm looking forward to diving into his story a little bit more and everything he's achieved. So Jason Brown, welcome to the show.
What's up, Nick? Glad to be here. And I am not familiar with that story, so I'm looking forward to hearing it too.
So what's awesome is, I want to say it had to be sometime in 2018 or 2019, whenever you were on, I think it was 2019, whenever you were on James's podcast.
I think it was 2019. Yeah.
Yeah. But I want to say it was earlier in 2019. But at the time, you were talking about how you were able to build a six-figure business while still having your full-time job, which was incredible. And at the time, I had a full-time job that I was working, trying to build my side hustle. And so I remember that moment, because for me, it was like, okay, like this is possible. Do I need to have like six figures before I leave my job? Wasn't necessarily, but I had reached out to you on Instagram. I had said thank you for the podcast episode, started following you then. But it just had such a huge impact on me of like what is really possible to getting your side hustle started and making it your full-time hustle. So it was super, super inspiring for me. So first off, just thank you.
Yeah. I don't even remember that message. So, you get so many DMs, but it just goes to show, like, be kind, show love to everybody, because you never know who's watching, who you're inspiring.
Yeah.
So I'm humbled to even know and hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about your story, like how you were able to do that. What started, what was kind of going on during that time when you were doing both in the full-time job, but then also working on, building this business that now is full-time.
Yeah. So, I'm an investor first and foremost. So I'm a stocks and options trader. And really, for me, what this was all about was everything in my life was really based around how do I get more money in the stock market. So, like, I went back to school, got my degree because I wanted to get a better job so that I didn't get more money to put into the stock market. So everything I've ever done was like, how do I get more money in the stock market? Because I had some success early on with the stock market. I took a $10,000 student loan, turned it into like $120,000. Then I was day trading for 3 years, lost all the money and had to go back to work. And so I was like, how do I make more money at work so I can put into the stock market? So went back to school, got my degree, was starting to invest again. And then I started moving up the corporate ladder, not necessarily just because I wanted to move up the corporate ladder, because if I can get paid more and don't increase my lifestyle, I can put that money into the stock market. And so the whole point behind that story is, as I hit that 100,000, I think when I left corporate America, I was making like 110,000, something like that. But even at that level, I was like, how do I get $1 million into my trading account? Right. And so for me, I was hearing and seeing about people selling courses and teaching and stuff like that. And I thought, well, I was part of somebody's program. Like, I wonder if people would pay me to be part of my program because I'm making money in the stock market. And I saw this as a way to build like $1 million trading account. So that was really my motivation for, I mean, obviously, second motivation was like I could help people. But I mean, first, it was totally selfish. It was like, how do I get $1 million in my trading account? I could teach this stuff. And I think I could get paid for it because I bought the information from somebody at some point. I'm just as good as these people, I felt. And so that's really what made me start my business. And then as I started the business, I started to see like the power of it. And I realized, I mean, I knew early on, even from investing, like I wanted to own my time. I don't want to sit in front of a computer and day trade all day. And so I looked at my business the same way. I said, I need to figure out how to build it part time while I'm at work because once I go full time, I technically don't want to work it full time. Like, I still want to be part time, I still want to be free. And so that led me down the journey of, instead of looking at my job as a negative, I looked at my job like, number one, I need to figure out how to do this part time. Because if I quit and I'm like, see, I told you I needed full time, then all I did was build myself another job. So that would have been an immediate problem. Number two, I worked for a Fortune 50 cable company as a regional manager. And basically, I was afforded to basically be an entrepreneur within the company. So I was able to run my own division, sales teams, etc. So I looked at my job as like training grounds. I'm like, oh, I get on the job training them how to run a team, how to run a business. I had team members in different parts of the state and we did the Zoom calls and webinar. It's like, how do I manage a team remotely? I'm like, I'm getting paid to learn how to do this stuff right now. So I looked at my job like, okay, they're going to pay me to teach me how to be an entrepreneur, basically. And so instead of quitting, I'm like, if I excel at my job, I'm going to need those exact same skills when I go over into my business, right? How to hire people, how to coach, how to fire, how to mentor, how to motivate, how to organize a remote team, et cetera, how to deliver on sales results for a big region. And so I just looked at it as a springboard versus like a burden, like, oh, I can't do this because of my job, or like they're holding me back. I was like, nope, they're giving me the opportunity to learn. And so that was really the motivation of how I saw things.
That's awesome. And I have had a similar experience because what I was doing before was very similar to what I do now, but I just wanted to do it for myself. So all of the experience, people are always like, "How do you know this stuff?" And I was like, "Well, because technically I've been doing it for 7 years, even though I haven't had my business for that long."
Exactly.
That's what we do. We utilize the experiences. But I love what you're talking about in just seeing, because basically, what I'm hearing is you had two ways of seeing it. You're seeing your job as a burden holding you back, or seeing your opportunity to basically fund your new venture. And to me, that's huge. I mean, that's everything. You have that choice to decide how you want to see these two different things and what you're willing to do with your time on the side. Now, did you find it difficult with, like, because you have a family, right? So was it hard doing all of these things together, or was it because your job was flexible, it kind of allowed you to do a lot of things?
No, I'm a big proponent of just using the time that you have wisely. And so if you look at, like, for example, I was married, I just got married, but I didn't have our two kids that we have now. But um, so let me back up. So let me tell you how I think about marriage, kids, family, etc. I had a friend who said, I want to go back to school. She just had a baby. And well, she didn't just have her baby's like 2 or 3. She said, I want to go back to school. I want to get my PhD, etc. But I just don't want to miss out on this time in our baby's life. And what I told her was, I said, well, one thing that we know for sure is it's going to take you 2 to 3 years to get that PhD. And you're going to have to be absent somewhat for 2 to 3 years. So I said, you have to choose if you're going to be absent from age 2 to 5, 5 to 8, 16 to 19, 21 to 24. You're going to have to pick. But one thing's for certain, it's going to take you 2 to 3 years of dedication and focus to get that degree. And so I'm sharing that story with you because when I got married, I said, it's going to take me 2 solid years of just focus on this business, not our marriage, not kids, or whatever the case may be, to build it. So I just had to ask myself, do I want to go ahead and get it out the way for the first 2 years, or do I want to be 6 years in, 2 kids later, now talking about I need to take away and pull away from the business. And I think you can do it no matter what step you're at. I think it's just so important to recognize the sacrifices going to have to get made no matter what. What's not going to change is you going to have to spend some late nights, some early mornings. It's just up to you if you want to get it out the way or if you want to keep delaying it. But you're going to have to pay the price at some point. So, was it easy having a family? No, but I knew up front that if I paid the price now, when we did have kids, we'd be free, so to speak. And that's kind of the lifestyle today. We got a nanny here while we're recording the podcast. I work from home. I only typically work one day a week that I have to work. I do work other times shooting podcasts or YouTube videos, but I only have to really deliver one day a week for my members, and you get a freedom lifestyle. So I knew this day would come if I put the work in there, which made it easier to make the sacrifice then. So
Yeah. That's exactly it. The sacrifice I'm willing to put up that the upfront costs. Because it's interesting for me, I had a very similar situation in that like a lot of times my friends and they family and they see me just like working all the time. That's the perception that they see. And they think, well, that's just going to be your life. You're just going to work all the time. You're just going to be a workaholic. I was like, no, the idea is to work way more now so that I can work way less in the future. I don't have a wife or kids, but the goal is to have a business that's running itself. So when I do, I can do what I want when I want with them, not just like continue working 80 hours a week for the rest of my life. Like that's not the goal. It's, how can I put the time in now and do it later? And it's so funny because I had a friend, one of my roommates at the time, he just didn't get it. But now he sees I moved to San Diego, I'm full time in my business. And he's like, now I get it. I thought you were crazy. Like he literally thought I was nuts, in doing this. But so like what do you think for you was so helpful in your success to be able to, create the business, create this freedom for yourself?
Uh, success as far as what? Tools or mindset or I mean, there's so many ways we could go with that.
That is a great question. I would say more on the mindset aspect because I think to me that comes first. Like the habits, the mindset, because everything else is, you can figure out and do different ways. But I feel like, and you could, agree or disagree, but there's certain fundamental mindsets that you need to have.
Yeah, I mean, you have to agree with that because uh, tools are tools, right? You could give me any tool, any email, any CRM. Well, I'll build a funnel around it. I don't care what the platform is, right? So as far as mindset that helped being successful, really it's just having a long-term vision, right? So it's you when you have a long-term vision, you make different decisions today. Like if you're only looking at tomorrow, you'd be surprised at the decisions that you make that'll come back to haunt you because you're like, I didn't think about that. You think about people who go to jail or something, that end up on first 48. It's like they went to go meet their friend at the ATM to borrow $5. And in that moment, they just had a great idea. We'll just rob them and tell them take 40 more dollars out or empty out the account. It's like they didn't think like, oh, what happens if the gun goes off by mistake? Oh, they got cameras at the ATM. They just thought for the next 5 minutes to 24 hours about, oh, wouldn't this be great if we just robbed them? I know this is a weird turn of events, but I'm saying people do that in life too, and it makes everything harder. And so for me, when I'm thinking long term, it was easy to put in the sacrifice, easy to put in the late nights because I wasn't thinking about how much money. If this don't make me money in 90 days, this doesn't work, or I'm a failure, right? I was already thinking 10 years down the road, kids, taking them to school every day. So I'm thinking 10, 15 years down. So no way is something so small going to knock me out the box, right? And so that is what really helped me just thinking long term. And so I knew I would figure it out. I knew this is where I was going. I knew it had to work because other people made it work. The only question was like, how do I make it work for me? Because if it's one thing I've learned is that people are not special. They are not special. I learned that from when I took my first $2,000 to a major bank at 18. And I said, I want to be rich. I came back 2 years later at like 2021, 2 to 3 years later, and they basically lost $1,300. And I was like, these people go to school for this. They work at a big bank. Surely they know how to invest. And they lost my money. And that's when I just realized, like, man, these people ain't special. Like, they just know something you don't know. So when I was coming into the game, I'm just like, these people aren't special. All the people that people look up to in the industry, like, oh, they're killing it, they're doing this, they're doing that. They're not special. They just A, know something you don't know, B, they're doing something you're not doing, and C, which is the one that most people discount, is they've been doing it longer than you. You look at these people and be like, they just had $1 million launch. It's like, well, they had $1,000 launch, $10,000 launch, $100,000 launch. You know how many contacts and emails and how their reputation has snowballed over the 10 years to now when they send an email, they can make $1 million at the click of a button. And it's like, I want to share with you my secrets of how I generated $1 million launch. It's like the secret is if you stay in this game long enough, you have a big enough list and a big enough following, and they will trust you so much that when you click the button, they'll get out their credit card without even thinking about it because they know you deliver value. And I know that the only way to get to that point is through time. It's not about running more ads. It's not, it takes time to build a reputation. And so I would say that's my secret sauce or my mindset that helped me is just like I'll win if I don't quit. I'll have a big following if I don't quit. I'll have 100,000 email lists if I don't quit. And so that's what really just helped me stay focused and helped me become successful, quote unquote. And it's like, I don't know, it's even weird saying become successful because what does that mean? But it's helped me make a ton of money and live the life that I consider success.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, oh my gosh, yeah, that's exactly it. Is we live in this world of instant gratification. We want things right away, but we don't look at some of these people that we're like, man, I want to be like them. It's like they've been putting out content consistently since 2007, So of course they got a
Totally.
$10 million business. It's like this is what we need to see, and getting over that hump, getting over this, like not seeing the not wanting things right away, being willing to be patient and see things further. And I think I know you did. You said something on Clubhouse the other day when you and I were on. And think Jen Casey was hosting, and she's going to be on the podcast soon as well. And talking about just enjoying the journey and not so much the destination. Does that tie into kind of what you're talking about here in the long term vision as well?
Yeah, it's to me that's the reverse of the long-term vision, and that is enjoying the right now. Like, how do you survive to get through to see the long-term vision even come into play? Well, the reverse of always focusing on the future is also enjoying the process right now. And I want to be more like give you tangible or your audience tangible examples. So like what is enjoy the process right now? Because someone might be saying, I don't have the money you have, or I'm spending time away from my kids, or whatever the case may be. How am I supposed to enjoy the process? I just spent 1,000 on Facebook ads and no one signed up. And for me, enjoying the process it was like I spent 1,000 on Facebook ads, nobody signed up. It's like, ooh, I just learned that nobody likes that image. It cost me $1,000. So now I need to change the image. Okay, now people are getting to the website. I spent another $1,000, but they're clicking, they're getting to the website, but nobody's registered. I'm like, ooh, now I know they like the image, but they don't like the copy on the page. Now I need to change the copy. Spent another 1,000. They clicked the image, they got to the page, they registered, but then they didn't buy. So now I'm like, ooh, it's something I didn't explain in the webinar. Now I need to rework the webinar. So that's enjoying the process. It's getting excited that you're one step closer versus like, this doesn't work. This sucks. Or, no one clicked. It's like, no, 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 no. You just learned something. It cost you $1,000, but you just learned something. And if you look at it like that, you start enjoying the process. You start enjoying being like a chemist in the laboratory. Like you're just testing different things to see what happens. And you know that, you're going to get closer and closer to, since we're going through COVID, I'm going to use this analogy. We're getting closer and closer to a vaccine, and you're going to have your breakthrough and the world's going to open back up to you. And so you have to get excited about testing and knowing that you're getting closer to your vaccine.
Yeah, and just like what you said, even to tie back to what you're saying earlier in like having that choice of seeing the opportunities or seeing what's holding you back. So you have the choice to see, oh my gosh, I just lost $1,000, or hey, I just paid $1,000 to learn this valuable lesson. And it's like you said, being the scientist, it's critical. We're tweaking, we're changing, and being willing to just keep tweaking, removing our emotions out of it too, so that we're making sure it's like, all right, well, what's working, what's not working, and how can we move forward, and just enjoying that process. What are you, what else, what's your other choice? Oh man, this stinks. Like, do you want to just like not enjoy the process? Because at the end of the day, that is your choice, and whether or not you want to enjoy it or you want to be miserable the whole time while you're trying to, build your dreams.
Yeah, and here's the thing most people don't understand is all the money and the shiny numbers people share look so sexy. If you don't enjoy the process, you don't realize you're actually signing up for a lifetime of that. So when people be like, I don't like going live, I don't like funnels, I don't like running ads, I don't, it's like you do realize that is what you're signing up for life. Like people think, oh, I'm just signing up to make $1 million. I'm gonna just do my business and enjoy it. It's like even if you don't do it personally every day, you're looking to hire someone to do it. You're overseeing it. You need to make sure they're doing what they do. So it's like you signed up for a lifetime of sales and marketing and providing value to people. And so it always kills me if people like, I want to enjoy the journey, but I don't like this part. It's like, well, that's what building a business is. I like just doing all this part, but I don't like taking care of the taxes, the finance, the back end. It's like, well, if you make $1 million every year you're gonna have to try to figure out how to pay less in taxes. So like you might be in the wrong industry if you don't like figuring that out because you're gonna have to figure it out every year because it's part of making $1 million plus. So it's like it's just this weird dichotomy of people want to pluck things out of it that they don't like when really you need to be accepting all of this process and this glory because that's what you're really signing up for a lifetime of.
Yeah,
You think
absolutely.
I'm successful and I'm like I don't want to do podcasts anymore. It's like no, podcast is what gets you discovered and what gets you to this level. I don't care how much money you make. You go jump on somebody's podcast. So it's people think at some point I won't do that anymore. It's like yeah, and you won't have a business anymore, right? So you might as well start embracing it and loving it now. Or at
Yeah.
least figuring out how to live with it, right? You talk to Will Smith or any of these actors, there's parts of their job they don't like, but they know how to turn it on and shed a tear on camera. They know how to turn it on and get in the script. You think they wake up they don't never have a headache or don't feel like acting or Kevin Hart doesn't feel like being funny today. Like, I'm sure he has some days where he's like, dude, I don't feel like cracking a joke. And as soon as they cut the camera on, he's like, okay, showtime, right? So that's the difference between an amateur and a professional. There's gonna be some stuff you don't like, but the professional knows how to compartmentalize that and get the job done. So you might as well start figuring that out now.
Yeah, being willing to do the things that you don't necessarily want to do. It's part of the business, and there's certain things you potentially can outsource to if you don't want to do it, and that's another thing. But again, that's all part of the process as well. You should still have like some fundamental foundations before giving that. I always talk about that with people with Facebook ads. It's like you should have some idea, because then the people you're hiring are telling you stuff and you don't even, you can't even understand the basic level of what they're saying. you know as a business owner, we have to have some idea of the different pieces. We don't have to be a master at each part. That's part of the journey. But then, we're building the team, we're building different people, and but being able to properly manage the team, we have to have that insight and knowledge for ourselves. When you were building your business, did you have that concept of, you knew that you had to build a team? You mentioned that earlier, but how quickly were you building a team with your side hustle?
Immediately, day one. Day one. So first person I hired was a virtual assistant. First person I hired was a VA. It just made sense. So I'm more of a like, I don't know what you would call me, more technical and practical. And so it just made sense to me that if I'm working a full-time job, the only way I can get 48 hours in the day is to duplicate myself. There's no other way to get 48 hours. So, or in the work world, if I'm working 8 hours for corporate, it's like, how can I get 8 hours again? How can I do 8 hours in my business at the same time I'm working corporate? Because people might have emailed me at 10 o'clock in the morning. And it's like, well, can't respond until after 6 or something like that. So I'm like, how do I get a second set of 8 hours? The only way to do that was to hire somebody. So from day one, I came out the gate hiring. That was my first hire of virtual assistants. And it just made sense. I said, I'll keep my day job. So I don't need any of the profits from the business. As I started making money from the business, I would pay her, and I actually hired her before I was even really making money from the business because I lived below my means at my job. So I made 100 and something thousand, but I was living off like 40,000. Right. So I hired her immediately because I immediately knew the benefit of duplicating myself. Right. And that was one of the biggest helps in building the business to $500,000 while I was working a full-time job, was having somebody else that can, execute things while I was quote unquote at work.
Working smarter, not harder. Just because you have a business doesn't mean you got to do all the work yourself.
Yeah, and I'm an investor again by nature. So to me, I didn't look at her like, again, most people have the short-term view, like, well, how am I pay her and I'm not making any money, or him, but it was a her for me, Michaela. Some people are like, how am I going to pay this person? I'm not making any money, but like, I'm an investor. I was like, I'm gonna take a portion of my salary and I'm gonna pay her because I saw that as an investment, not an expense. I'm like, I'm investing in her to learn certain things to do while I'm at work so that we can get on the other side of profit from the business. And so, you say, what has helped you? What other mindset has helped me is looking at everything as an investment from day one. I just come into the game looking at stuff like an investment. I immediately bought the best software, the best automation. Like it just made sense. It's an investment. Anything that I could do from keep to give me more hours in the day or help me run the business without me being physically present while I was still able to work, I bought it. Like if it was like this thing will send an email every time someone emails you, I'm like, I want it. If I don't have to wait till after 6 to send somebody an email back, if I could get like the standard emails and answer it in one email and say, if your question is this, your question is this, your question is this, it fired off an email automatically. I was like, I want it. Like I was just always about what's the investment that's going to allow me to systematize, automate this? Who do I need so that I can run this part time? So when I go full time, it's still part time. I came out the gate day one thinking like that.
I love that. So when I go full time, it's still part time. That is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And like you said, that was going to be my question. You went right into answering it. Is like, how important is investing, in yourself? Because that's basically what it is at the end of the day. Yeah, you're investing in a software or you're investing in tools or, all these different things. But at the end of the day, you're investing in yourself because you know that when you invest in this thing, that you're going to do what needs to be done to make sure that you're making that income. And when you invest in these different tools, it allows you to then focus on the most important tasks in your business that are going to generate and move the needle, get the revenue that you're looking to pay for those costs.
Exactly. At some point, and like anything in life, you don't get worse by doing it more. You get better, right? There's not one category where someone does something over and over again. They typically get worse at doing it. So when
Yeah.
you think about it like that, it's like it only gets better from here. It just whatever your first day was, your worst day was, it only gets better from there because you don't do it and get worse at it. You only get better. So I knew it was only a matter of time for the investment pays off, whether it's in her software or re-recording courses, it's only a matter of time. You go live one time and you stumble and bumble. You go live the second time, you stumble and bumble a little less, right? Every time you do it, you get a little bit better. So by definition, your first time will always be your worst time. Every time after that, it just gets better. And so if you look at it like that, it's like, well, let's get worse out the way so we can go ahead and get to good. And let's get good out the way so we can go ahead and get to great.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I love it. You got to get started. Be willing to take those first steps and be seen, you know, being bad, or learning the process and being willing to just give it a shot. Take the first step forward. When you
Yeah,
were talking about earlier, like one of the most important things when you were going through that the three lists you said, like, you know, a lot of this most successful people are just doing something different or doing something that you're not willing to do. It could just be that one thing, taking that first step, like showing up on social media, going live, showing up on a podcast, being
absolutely.
willing to just be bad.
Absolutely. We talked about this in the group one time when I jumped on that call. I said, just look at everything that the people who don't make the money you want to make do. What do they all do? They all complain in the group. They all say ads don't work. They all say they scared of getting on camera. And you could just take the list of what unsuccessful people do and complain about. And if you just do the opposite, you're going to kill it. It's like, I'm scared to get on camera. It's like, okay, get on camera. I tried this for 30 days. It didn't work. It's like, try it for longer than 30 days. You're going to be like, it just is. They give you the recipe of what not to do. Just do the opposite. You'll be successful.
Oh man, so easy breaking it down.
It's if you think about it like that, right? I watch people complain. I'll be like, okay, don't do what that person do because that clearly ain't the path to a million. I sent one email and no sales. It's like, okay, note to self, send more than one email. Like, it's just simple.
Yeah, follow up. The key is in the follow up. I love that. Now,
Well,
I do
just do
have.
the opposite of what unsuccessful people do.
Who knew that it could be so simple? What a simple process to just, oh, look at all these unsuccessful people that you don't want to do. And the flip side, too, is looking at all the successful people that you do want to follow, the people that you do want to see. What are they doing?
Yeah, now that can be a little tricky, and that's why I went with look at the unsuccessful people. Now, if you're quote unquote unsuccessful, I don't mean that you're not a successful husband, father, person of God. So don't take this episode the wrong way. I'm saying unsuccessful in your business, your revenue, or wherever you're trying to get from that standpoint. And so what I'm trying to say here is when you got to be careful though of saying like let me just do what the successful people do because sometimes you can't see what's happening in on the back end of the funnel, right? You might be like, they're giving away a free ebook or a free course. And you're like, should I just give my course away for free? But you don't know they have a back end membership that they're upselling people into. So you also have to take it with a little grain of salt, like like for example, I see like Russell Brunson. I love Russell Brunson, but sometimes, I don't know if Russell listens to your podcast. He's a big timer at ClickFunnels, right? But I always take what Russell Brunson says with a grain of salt though, because Russell has such a huge following that Russell will be like, how I sold 10 million from the stage. And it's like, well, everyone knows who you are at this point in the game. So you could get up there and just say, click the button. And he'll be like, I found out you don't need a sales page or anything. Just all you have to do is put a red button and say, click the button. It's like, yeah, Russell, like that's sort of true, but there's all this other stuff that people don't see behind the scenes of you building your company, of you building funnels, of you having a reputation to get to a point where you could just say, click the red button, right? So sometimes mimicking the successful people could also be a little bit of smoke and mirrors. I'm not saying that successful people, there aren't some things you can follow, but you won't get exactly their results because you haven't put in the time, you haven't figured out what your audience wants to hear, and you also haven't fully built your authentic voice. So there are some what do we call that in the investment world? Intangibles, right? There's tangible things you can do, like go live, do this. What you can't measure is like you could create a shoe, but what's intangible about Nike creating the shoe is the brand. They just put a swoosh on it, immediate credibility. You immediately believe it's a good shoe. You immediately believe the shoe's worth $100. If Jordan puts his name on it, you immediately are willing to pay $300 for it. I could come out with a shoe tomorrow, like I did what Nike did. I made a shoe. I met with the people in China. Hired a little local athlete to run up and down some stairs. I videoed it. Like, how come no one's buying my shoe? Right. So tactically, I did everything Nike did, but the intangible, it's like, yeah, they got 100 years of building a brand that you don't see, right? So,
Right. No, and that's a great point because we often are not seeing the behind the scenes. People may be like, "Hey, I got this seven-figure business," but their expenses are over seven figures, and it's like, all right, well,
right,
you don't even know these people that you could be looking up to have, all of these underlying things that you can't see. So it's so important that we make sure that we stay grounded and focus on what we're doing because you don't know the behind the scenes. You don't know the back end story.
you don't. I've seen people have a $300,000 launch and like behind the scenes found out they spent $290,000 or 200,000 plus on Facebook ads, So it's like, you didn't really mention that part, just like I had a $300,000 launch. Anyone can do it, So, mm, but that's a whole
Yeah,
nother story. But I'm just
right.
saying,
Yeah, and at that point, at least they're in the profits because there are, I'm sure, people that are, you know. But then again, it's like knowing your numbers is an important thing in that aspect. But you said it's spot on. Again, you can't always look at what these successful people are doing from the outside, and try and mimic them exactly. And Russell Brunson, he is like the king of the upsell. That's like his whole thing. I mean, you try and
right,
download his free book, you got to click I don't want something like six times in order to actually get the free book.
right, right. The free book that's not really free because they free plus handling, shipping and handling. So
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
you're paying the, $8 for the shipping and handling that, covers their cost, but also, there may even be a profit in that. I don't know how much it costs them, but
bare
you know,
minimum probably breaking even knowing that guy, right?
right. And but
Sucks.
they know they're gonna make up for it with all the upsells. I know he got me. I bought the audio. I skipped through five different things, and then I was like, "Ooh, the audio would be nice. I could listen in my car." Yeah,
Exactly.
I'll do the upsell with the with the audio.
Exactly. And so that's the stuff sometimes people don't see when they're trying to mimic somebody else. But you only get through to that other side by being in these circles and also continuing down your path till you start to figure out what works with your audience, what upsell, what this, what that, what can you give away for free. And you only figure that out if you don't quit and you got that long-term vision. I think that's the big thing I want people to take away, right? You only figure out your niche, your calling, your upsell, your special offer if you don't quit and if you keep the long-term vision to know that someday you will be the Russell Brunson of your industry. You will be the James Wedmore's, the Knicks of your industry. But you only get there if you go through the fire.
Go through the fire. Yeah, being willing to try different things and see what's gonna work. There's so much trial and error that goes into that process and figuring out what's gonna work. And it goes to that long-term vision. Like, how much time are you gonna be willing to put in to get those results that you want? I don't know if you know Rachel Hollis, but I know I saw her speak at the Kajabi Summit and she talked about that. She's like, yeah, I look like an overnight success, but you don't see like the 10 years of me writing books that no one was reading, you know?
Absolutely.
All of these
Yeah.
things are just like so essential in realizing, all right, the best way and the quickest way to success is by just doing, putting your head down, making it happen, trying things. And you mentioned doing what your audience, what works for your audience. When some of my clients like, oh, should I do this? And I'm like, well, maybe different for you. You should try it. One of my friends reached out to me and he was like, what do you think about this idea? I said, it's a great idea and you should do it. I don't know if it's going to work, but at least you can try and figure out. If it doesn't, tweak it. And what often happens, it ends up leading to something else. It's like this staircase that you're looking up and you don't see that there's actually a turn ahead until you get up a few steps. And then, there's another direction and something else that you never thought was even going to come because you didn't take those first couple steps.
Yeah. I tell my team, like, we had sent like a promo out. We did some type of promo. I don't remember which one. And like I think one person bought it or two people bought it. And like one person on my team was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. This promo didn't work." I said, "Why are you sorry? I said, this is what we do. We test stuff. We found out nobody likes that promo. Like, we just won't run it again. Like, it's nothing to be sorry about. And so, like, I even train my team, like, I don't really like when they come to me, like, do you want it like this or do you want it like that? Should we post this or post that? I'd be like, have we done it before? Like, no. I'm like, let's try it. Like, if they hate it, we won't post that again. Right. If they love it, we figure it out. So, like, we only know by trying it. It's like, if I can get to where I'm at and you post one thing and it tears my whole business apart, like, I never had a business anyway. If that was gonna crush my business, I mean, barring is something like not political or racist or something like that. I mean, that stuff can crush some careers, but I mean, outside of anything astronomical, right? My team wouldn't post anything like racist, sexist, etc. But outside of that, I mean, there's not much you can do to like tear down what I've spent years building at the click of an email button.
Yeah. I was talking about that with somebody recently in regards to like Instagram and whether or not, they asked me if it should be raw or more like polished. And it's like, all right, well, if you've only done polished, then you don't even know what a more raw photo is going to do for you. You
Right.
know, people get so wrapped up in their, oh, this is how I want it to look, but they're not willing to actually try something else because it's what they want instead of realizing like what does your audience want, what does your audience need, what's going to have the most impact. Because from my experience, the unpolished ones tend to do better, but that's looking at my data, looking at the audience,
Hmm.
and seeing what works.
Absolutely. I've seen some stuff where sometimes I look at some people's pages and I'm like, all this curated stuff, and then I go to some people who got like thousands of followers, hundreds of thousands, and it's just like they just post whatever. And sometimes your mind is just blown. I mean, you don't know if they're fake followers, real followers, but sometimes your mind is blown that like there's people that come and just totally break the rules and it just works. It's like, oh, I thought it had to be a professional picture, had to be smiling in each one, I had to write a perfect caption. And then there's some people that's like, how you feeling today? That's it. That's the caption. Everyone's like, I'm feeling great. Thanks for asking. How are you? And then I write this beautiful, the world is your oyster. You can be whatever you want. God has your plan. You should feel positive, empowered. And it's like, leave a comment below. And it's like, no comments. So you just gotta test it, man. You just
Yeah.
never know.
And I love it. You mentioned like, oh, like the rules, like I have to post it like this. And it's like, there are no rules in business.
you
Absolutely no
know,
rules.
there's only one rule: don't quit and make money at some point. you know,
At some point, that's a key part. Definitely need to, you don't have a business if you're not making money. And I think sometimes people get caught up in that as well. They want to help people, they want to serve people. I don't want to raise my prices. And it's like, you have a business to run, you know, what do you want? Because at the end of the day, what do we talk about? Investing, the transformation comes when people are willing to invest, you know,
say
and
the
actually putting the
transformation is in
money
the
down.
transaction.
Transformation is in the transaction. I had a client, the same thing. I asked him, I was like, would you have showed up to the calls if you didn't pay? And he was like, no, probably not. And
No,
so I'm like, so why do you want to give your services away for free? Like, you want people to show up and get the results. They have to be willing to put their credit card down, or else it's just another thing. It's just another free thing that they're going to not pay attention to. The more you invest, the more you pay attention.
and the moment they hit a little speed bump, oh, I didn't feel good. Oh, the kids, it's like, I'm not showing up today. Let them pay some money. They be like, kids, I know y'all sick. You'll be okay. I got a call to jump on, right? I got to get everything I came to get from this person I paid, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'm curious in regards to like investing, and I know you've invested in a lot of things in a number of different areas. Is there one particular thing that you invested in, whether it's a book, a podcast, a program, a tool, or anything that was just so impactful for you?
Uh, I mean, there's always things that impact you at different levels. So, for example, when I was just like flat broke and just like want to learn about money and wealth, like the thing I invested in was Rich Dad Poor Dad audiobooks. I mean, I think it cost me like 14.99. That's probably been the most impactful thing I could have bought because it changed my mindset of how I thought about money, people working and me working for money and all this and that. So I mean, like at that stage, it was the Rich Dad Poor Dad book audio version on up to, paying, 25 to $30,000 to be in a high level mastermind. What I learned from that was I had everything I needed to be successful. I needed to go execute now. I didn't need to learn another thing. I thought I needed to learn this, learn that, ads, this, that, and the third. It's like I left thinking I got everything I need to be successful. There's no other group, there's no secret formula. I just got to go execute now. So, I mean, at different stages in my life, there's always been something that has been like super impactful.
Right. That
I joined.
answer changes.
Yeah, it changes. One time I joined like a local business group and they all had like brick and mortar businesses. And like that was super impactful for me because I didn't learn anything from those guys. But what I did was leave feeling like I don't want a brick and mortar business. Right. So like it made me appreciate the online because at first I was like, man, I gotta record, I gotta send emails, I gotta build a funnel. And like I thought that was a lot of work until I had joined this local group and they like, I got inventory, I got a truck coming in. One of the things broke and what's shipping? Shipping costs went up. And I was just like, it was the most boringest stuff you could ever talk about. And I need a second warehouse for inventory. And I was just like, oh God. Like, so then I was like building a funnel and recording a video all of a sudden doesn't sound so bad. So, like, even in that situation, it was so impactful to be around that group because it taught me what I didn't want. So, you know, there's just so many different things in life that I've invested in that has helped.
Yeah, I mean that's such a great example because often we think about things that whether or not we think we're going to like it or not like it, or it's going to be successful or it's going to work or it's not going to work. Whereas in this case, it's like, hey, you joined this group and you learned a very valuable lesson that this is not what I want. And in order to know the thing that we want, we need to have what we don't want. You know, you need to have that like horrible ex-girlfriend to figure out, all right, well, I don't want I don't want this example, to happen to me again.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes just knowing what you don't want is as powerful as knowing what you do want.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you mentioned Rich Dad Poor Dad because to me that was a huge impact for me and I'm recommending that book to people all the time as well. Is
Great
there
book.
any other books that you like recommend a lot to other people?
Off the top of my head, Think and Grow Rich was a second one that was very impactful for me. One of the quotes that always stick out is Henry Ford when his guy came to him, his engineers, he said, I want you to build a V8 engine. And the engineers went, worked on it, came back and said, it's impossible. We can't build a V8. It's impossible. And Henry Ford said, build it anyway. Oh God, I love the bravado of a guy that you look in the face and you're the expert and you say it's impossible. And he looks back and says, okay, build it anyway. Like, talk about the bravado, the guts, the belief that guy had to look at his engineer, who's supposed to be the smart one, who just told him it was impossible. And he said, oh, okay, build it anyway. And as you know today, right, there's cars that have a V8 engine, they have a V10, V12. Um, so it's just so cool to see like the bravado of some of the old wealthy people, like that mindset. Like, yeah, I'm gonna have a V8 engine car, so go back and figure it out and let me know when you're done. But it's impossible. Okay, let me know when you finish and build it.
Yeah,
Like,
if you think it's impossible, then I'm gonna find somebody else that thinks it is possible.
yeah,
And
because
it's
we're
like, yeah, go ahead.
no, just because we're gonna have AVA, and it's like you have to look at your business like that. Like, I didn't make money this year, but that's okay. We're gonna make it next year. If I don't make it next year, that's okay. We're gonna make it year three. There's something about life that wants to know how bad you want it, and they're gonna throw some stumbling blocks in front of you and say, like, how bad does he want it? Let's let them lose $500 on their first Facebook ad. And it's like, I want to be a millionaire. I want to retire my mom. I want to bring my husband home. You hear all these people with these outlandish stories, right? And then it's like, my first Facebook ad failed. And it's like, so forget retiring your husband, putting your kids through college, forget being wealthy. A $500 loss on a Facebook ad took you out the game. Like, it's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. It's funny. It's like the stuff that people dream that their life will be like, and then the in comparison to the thing that knocked them out and made them say, "Never mind, I don't need to be wealthy. I don't need to put the kids through college. I don't need to bring my husband out." Like, it's so funny when you see how big their dreams is, and then like the littlest thing that knocks them out the box. I couldn't figure out Kajabi, so I guess this is over. It's like, okay, if that's all that stood in the way between you and your dreams, you weren't going to get there anyway.
It's exactly it. It's the commitment and what that commitment is. And, in the Henry Ford situation, he was committed regardless of how long it takes. And I think that's the big thing to ask, yourself is like, how long are you willing to wait? And are you willing to not have a time frame and just be willing to just make it happen regardless? Because like that's the level of commitment. On the call yesterday, I was mentioning before we jumped on to record, like James talked about, if you're a parent, you're so committed that you're gonna do whatever it takes to make sure that they get fed, they have a shirt on their back, regardless. There is nothing that could come in the way. You could get shot and you'd be like, no, I'm still gonna make sure like my kid is fed. Like that level of commitment. Yet so many of us don't have that commitment to our goals, to our business, and literally willing to do whatever it takes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's mind-blowing that, like I said, the things people want to achieve and the smallness of the things that knocks them out of the box. It's mind-blowing.
Love it. Amazing. So awesome. We talked about some incredible things. I mean, your story is amazing to go from, the freedom that you've been able to create to having that full-time job. We talked about that the sacrifice. There needs to be that upfront sacrifice and be willing to take that time now so you can reap the rewards later. And that only happens with that long-term vision. You mentioned how important that long-term vision, having that foresight, really seeing like, what do I want? What am I willing to do to make that happen? And seeing it not 3 steps ahead, but seeing it further down the line. I love that he said people are not special. And that's just so on the dot. When you look at other people, like, stop comparing yourself, because they are no different than you. If it was capable for them, it is capable for you. You have the potential. The other side of it is, you know, everyone's special. Like, that's the other way you can look
Right.
at it too. It's an amazing thing. Um, and just enjoying the process. I love that you talk about that. It takes time in our journey, in our entrepreneur journey, and what we're doing. It's going to take time. Being willing to put the time in and just enjoy the process, enjoy the journey, enjoy doing the things that you are telling yourself that you don't want to do, and just shift your mindset around it, and start enjoying it. And amazing things are going to happen, because you're just going to be a happier person when all of these things that you need to do, you have a different shift, in your mindset. Talked about outsourcing, and the big thing, just having that commitment to what's going to make your dreams happen. Are you actually committed? Amazing. So much good stuff here. I really appreciate your time and being here. Do you have any last things you want to leave with the audience?
Just, keep going. That's the thing I would leave people with, because when you quit, you don't know who would have heard your story or who you would have inspired had you kept going. One of the things that inspires me to do podcasts like this is, like, I remember being on my job full time and listening to people whose making this money and this stuff. And like, it gave me hope when I heard that, oh, this person was just a school teacher, or oh, this person used to work in sales, outside sales too. And I could relate and be like, wow, so somebody that either came from a space that I was in or something similar, I could grab onto and say, man, if that person did it, I can too. But if they quit and they never kept going, then that podcast episode wouldn't have came out. I wouldn't have been able to relate to that story. I'd been sitting there thinking the only people who can do this are special or unique in this certain industry or whatever the case may be. And so just keep going, because you never know who you're going to inspire. And you can't help anybody if you haven't gone through anything. I mean, can you imagine if I just came out the gate and was like, I never hired anybody. I just put out an offer and everybody bought it, and I quit my job and life was good. Can you imagine when you're like, so how did you deal with being married and building a business? Like, put out an offer and everything was good. It's like, well, how'd you deal with your first hire? How'd you build a team? How'd you scale? How'd you run? It's like, first offer I ever put out just worked, right? Like, that helps nobody. That helps nobody, right? So actually understand that what you're going through, I always say, like, I'm getting the blueprint that I could pass to my little cousins, to my son, my daughter. Like, I'm going through it so I can say, here's the blueprint. Here's how you manage people. Here's how you build an online business. Here's how you do it while you're working a full-time job, right? Like, all the stuff that a normal person is probably going to go through in their life, I have knocked down those doors to be like, oh yeah, it came from a single parent household. Yeah, I can show you how to manage your time, how to get around and get mentored. Oh, you work a full-time job and you're married. Yep, I can show you how to build it part-time. Oh, you got kids too. Yep, I can show you how to hire, schedule, leverage yourself. Like, what going through it allows you to really help somebody else. So embrace that. Don't wish the journey was easier, right? Wish you were smarter, right? Wish you were tougher, but don't wish the journey was easier, because that hard road is going to be what allows you to share your story and for other people to resonate with it. They're not going to resonate with the first thing I put out. Everyone just bought it. Life was good. Like, that helps nobody.
Love
That
it.
makes people think you're special. Well, okay, guess this person's special.
Yeah, I mean that's so amazing. That's a great sentiment. It's that level of, we're only going to be able to the best way we're going to be able to serve our people is by having problems ourselves, because we have to then solve those problems, and those are the greatest assets that we can share and pass on. Not necessarily
Absolutely.
the successes, it's the struggles, it's the journey. That's the most valuable process.
Yeah, because if you make $1 million, people don't really say, how do you made $1 million? They don't say that. What they really are saying is like, how did you start from nothing? Right? That's what they're really asking you. Like, how'd you do it? Like, I'm struggling. I got no money. I don't have an audience. I don't have an email list. That's what they're really asking you, right? Not how'd you make $1 million? You're like, oh, I made it by hitting send on this button and people got their credit card out. Yeah, but that's not what I'm really asking. How'd you build a following? How'd you get people to believe? How'd you get your messaging right? How'd you do this while working a job? How'd you do this with a wife, a kid? That's what people are really asking you, right? So that's the part you won't need to either figure out or hire out. I mean, hire like a coach or a mentor. People hire coaches and mentors for like help me run my ads. It'd be like, you should be trying to really figure out what makes a successful person. Like, if you want to hire somebody, like, find somebody wealthy. Like, can I just pay you and follow you around for the day? And not somebody that's wealthy and retired, right? Because like that might not necessarily help. But someone who's wealthy and like active, you start to see like, oh, he got up at 6 o'clock. I get up at 8. So he already got a 2 hour head start. Oh, he listened to an audio book in his car. I couldn't finish a book because I can't find time to sit down and read. But you're like, oh, that's the hack. He listened to an audio book while he drive, right? So if you just follow him around, you're like, okay, this person runs their day way different than me, way different. Had nothing to do with a funnel, an ad, this and that. It's like the way they hire people, look at systems, run their day, the time they get up. That's the stuff that nobody's really trying to pay for and what they probably should be trying to pay for, you know?
Love it. Yeah. And I'm curious because I often ask this question, and maybe we can keep it brief because I was wrapping it up, but I would love to know if you can answer quickly because I want to be mindful of your time. Is like some of your morning habits, like what time do you wake up? What are the most important processes that you have in your routine that have helped you?
So it varies from different times in your life. When I was working my job, I would stay up late, get up early to get it done. Now that I got a little bit more time and got two young kids, 2 and 6 months, 2 years old and 6 months, like sleep is precious. I'm not waking up to like 8, 9 o'clock, But lately I've been getting up at 5 a.m., but I don't do that every day. So really my habits is just making sure you're using the time that you have wisely. So um, typically throughout the day, I put my phone on do not disturb, just because if my friends are texting me or calling on their lunch break, like you can really get caught up in like talking to them when you should be working on like your goals and your dreams. And then you look up, an 8 hour days went by, and now I'm trying to work after 5 o'clock when I should be spending time with my wife and kids. And I'm like, well, what did I do the whole 8 hours? Like, oh, I talked to my boy for an hour. I text this person back and forth a few times. So that's probably one big hack is I just put my phone on do not disturb throughout the day, and then I check it when I'm ready. I also put my computer on do not disturb, and because all the Facebook messages and the pings and stuff start popping up, and it's just so easy to go down that rabbit hole. I also write down like the top three things I want to get done for the day, and I try to call it a successful day if I at least get those things done. Because you'll have a list of 10 things, you never get all 10 done. But I always like, if I get these three done, today was a success. So I try not to over plan my day, because I used to over plan it and then I would beat myself up and be depressed when I didn't get all these things done. When the reality was, there was no way I was gonna get that stuff done. So I was setting myself up for failure day after day after day. Then you get to a point where, why even write it down? I don't finish any of it. So then I went ultra minimalist. Like, if I get this one thing done, then two things, no more than three. Anything after three is just bonus. Don't even write it. Just do it. If it's after three things, it's cool. But you start to venture into a dangerous place where you can't keep up that rhythm of doing 10 things a day. And so you ultimately set yourself up to crash. And then when you crash, you're like, I'm getting out of my groove. What's wrong with me? You start having all this negative talk when really just set yourself up to win every day. Because if you do 10 things one day, but you can't do that every day, the guy who can consistently do one thing, two things, or three things, he's going to crush you. Because after a 30-day month, he's got 90 things done. And you got like 1 week where you did 10, the next week you took off, the next week maybe you did 10. And so you look up in the whole month and you got 20 things done. And that person did three things a day and they got 90 things done. And you're like, why are they crushing me? It's like, what you can do consistently is way better than how many reps you can put in one time.
Love it. So impactful. Love it. That's a great takeaway. Focusing on the three things. So simple. Make it happen. Do not disturb. Lastly, what's the best place for somebody to get in touch with you, follow you, get a hold of you?
Best place is just swing by the website, thebrownreport.com. From there, you can check out the YouTube channel, which is The Brown Report on YouTube. It's Brown Report on Instagram. But like I said, instead of remembering all that, just go to thebrownreport.com or brownreport.com. I own both domains. And you can find all the other social handles and information about me there.
Love it. Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks, for everything you've done for me. Again, previously, you sparked me. So hopefully this will spark somebody else also, on their journey to take them to the next level and start to make the things possible to build their dreams. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me, and thanks for sharing that I impact you, because it helps me want to get the story out there more to see who else we can help and change. So thank you too.
Absolutely. Love it. And thank you, listeners, for being here. I hope you enjoyed this lesson and this episode. Check out Jason. And remember, let's keep growing together.
Wait, one more thing. I would first like to say thank you. Thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed this message, please take a moment to write a review. By writing a review, it helps people find this message and helps me help more people. And if you really liked it and you think this message could help someone else, take a screenshot, share it on Instagram, and please tag me at Nick J Boni, NickJBoni, so I can show my appreciation for you. We can all win by helping each other grow. Thank you. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon.